Hello and welcome back to the Brighter Podcast. My name is Chelsea.
And my name is Batsheva.
And my life is so much brighter thanks to Batsheva.
My life is also way brighter thanks to Chelsea.
We love to come here every week and share tools, techniques, stories, and our experience and hope that with those, it will help to make your journey a little brighter. And today we're going to be diving into a topic that we both love dearly. We're going to get into all of the woo. And maybe you know what that means, maybe not, but we're going to be diving into astrology and tarot cards and reading and all of those fun things. And wondering, is the woo for you? But before we do that, we like to arrive in the space. So we're going to begin by go ahead and exhale all the air out. We're going to take a few deep breaths together. So inhale in through the nose. And exhale out through the mouth. Take another deep breath in through the nose. And exhale out through the mouth. Final breath, deepest breath in through the nose. And exhale, releasing out through the mouth. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Astrology, tarot cards, readings, the moon phases, the sun, all of the things. And we are experiencing it firsthand here, as this is now our fourth recording of this episode. We're not sure, Mercury's supposed to go retrograde tomorrow, but maybe it's showing up a day early for us. Because we have had lots of technical glitches and different things, but here we are, because we're so excited to bring this episode to you. We have not given up yet. And it's funny because I feel like my journey with astrology and everything started whenever I was much younger, and it was reading my own personal horoscope in Cosmo magazine or in the newspaper, just seeing what it had to say. I definitely didn't follow it every week per se, but that was the first thing that I would turn to. And since then, it has evolved to apps, and I've actually been gifted a reading. Batsheva gifted me a reading for my birthday this year. It was kind of my first professional reading, and from a Feng Shui astrologer, and it was really amazing, and I loved it. And I also had been gifted my first deck of tarot cards a few years ago, and since then I've gotten more decks and oracle cards, and I just really love to use them, not as predictor, not as this is like the end all be all, but just as kind of like a tool to help me along the path. And that's the same with astrology. I like to see what's going on with the stars in order to really take advantage and harness the energy that's available to us. I like to think of it as we have this certain times, say that you have an assistant and you're going to have an assistant for this month, and that assistant can only help you with these certain tasks. You can still choose to work on the other task, but you're not going to get the help from the assistant with those tasks, only these certain ones. And so if you think about it, it's it's to my benefit if I actually work on those tasks this month while I have the extra help. And so that's kind of how I look at astrology and the energy that's available to us. And Batsheva, she has a pretty interesting story of how she came about the woo.
I know, it's true. I've dove deep into the woo by now, but initially I was brought up in Washington, D.C., which is a very intellectual, as we all know, political town. Not a lot of woo happening over there, very little. And yet I was drawn to my astrology, my daily astrology, whatever I could find in the Washington Post. My parents would get it, and I'd go immediately to the comics section, read my horoscope and read the comics and be done with the newspaper, maybe get some Ann Landers in there and then finish up. And at that point, as many of you know, if you've read any of my blogs or if you've listened to some of our stories, I did not feel like I had found my people. Throughout my childhood, I felt a lot of depression. I did not believe in God. I didn't think there was anything out there. So by the time I graduated, a very intense college experience, which was amazing, but also crazy intense. I put all the pressure on myself, came out to LA, land of the world, and began to be exposed to that. Something in my heart started to open and my mind started to open, and taking yoga and becoming more aware of the breath and the link that we have to something greater than ourselves that, you can call the universe, God, goddess, creator, spirit. Now I'm comfortable saying all those terms. Early on, it was like, it was very hard for me. And then I was exposed to certain books that rocked my world, like Brian Weiss's Many Lives, Many Masters. And I understood that there is such thing as reincarnation. And I understood so much more about my own life in that context. It was so soothing and so comforting and awakening. And similarly, around the same time, with Paramahansa Yogananda's Autobiography of a Yogi, which I highly recommend, and the Kabbalah Center, which I began to take classes there and go to some of the events there. And I was so surprised. I knew it was mystical Judaism, and I had been brought up Jewish, but very, very, very secular, with like zero belief in God even, sadly. And with the Kabbalah Center, they taught me that Abraham the patriarch, who's the father of all three major religions to this day, was actually the author of the very first book, recorded book ever, of astrology. It's called the Book of Formation. And he talked about how the Hebrew, or back then the Aramaic letters, were energetic, physical manifestations or portals of energy that was connected to the moon cycles of the year. And there's so much richness in this education and this information, knowing, of course, that our bodies are mostly water. So it did make sense to my left brain, like my logical brain, that, well, why wouldn't the stars and the moon and the planets affect our physical bodies at least? Because look what it does to the tides and water in general. So I was able to open my mind a little bit that way. But also just little by little by little, like Chelsea said, you learn about a certain transit, like when Mercury goes retrograde, and you hear some of the stereotypes, and some of the stereotypes come because there's some truth in there, which is there's often technical glitches that happen during Mercury retrograde. There's often people who come back into your life that you haven't seen for a long time during Mercury retrograde. So as I became more aware of the transits, I began to, like Chelsea said, see in my own life that it was reflected. And then I learned also about Chinese astrology, including the art of object placement, feng shui. Again, I was never, and I'm still not, a practitioner. I can't do readings, but I was really drawn to the masters, the people who've been doing this for decades and who, could really open it up and expose for me what is going on. And to this day, I check Annette Halfon Soul's Mirror, I think is her TikTok, and she gives you the energy of the day. And it's so spot on. It's crazy. But she's the one that I gifted the reading to Chelsea. I've had readings with her personally. When I found Tosha Silver, it took it to another level because she talked about a different kind of astrology, like a different point of view. She called it evolutionary astrology. And she talked a lot about each of our soul's karmic curriculum as designated by our charts. She said doing thousands and thousands of charts for 30 years straight allows her to see everybody as their chart. And there's no judging somebody or ourselves once you see someone as a chart, because it's like seeing their DNA code. It just is who they are. It's what they're made up of. And the lessons they need to learn are encoded in the chart, which is pretty cool. And the way we need to grow and the challenges we will have. So, like Chelsea said, I myself prefer not to look for predictions from charts or from astrology. And in fact, when I've been given those, unsolicited or solicited at times where I really wanted answers from readers, I wound up regretting hearing what they had to say and predict, because either it did not come true, and therefore I almost felt like devastated and really disappointed, or it kind of almost took the surprise and excitement out. So, I mean, yes, we want to be reassured, but I agree with Chelsea. I think what we can get most from these beautiful tools tarot as well from Tosha. I got her beautiful decks, 2 of them, and I pull a card and it resonates with me, and it kind of just it's like a friend just saying, "You got this," or like, "Okay, just like lay low for today." Like, it's like Chelsea said, it's that extra bit of support that we can gift ourselves if we are drawn to the woo.
How I like to look at it is this isn't some outside thing. Like, this isn't some other person. This isn't some deck of cards I mean, we say, oh, the card spoke to me. But really, for me, what it is it's my own internal higher self, my own inner knowing, my own inner voice that is actually recognizing the different parts that are in the card or the different things that someone says, because the way that we all perceive things is on an individual basis. And two people can draw the same exact card, but depending on what's going on in their life, what their current circumstances are, they can receive the message completely different. And so that to me is really where the magic is, where, it comes to being really individualized. And kind of going back to, I really loved how you touched about like your experience with like God and goddess and all of those things. And it just reminded me of a interaction I had with this gentleman. My husband Hunter and I went to a restaurant and we sat down at the bar, which we usually don't do since we don't drink. We're like, not really like our scene anymore per se, but we know the bartender and we're like, yeah, there's no tables. Like, we'll just sit here. The bar was empty. And of course, somebody came up and sat right next to me and immediately started like asking me like what I do, which for those of you that know, like I have been an ICU nurse for over 15 years, although I'm not within the last year. I have quit practicing in the hospital setting and went to this more holistic route, this more preventative alternative modalities, helping people to really heal from root causes instead of trying to put Band-Aids on with surgeries and pharmaceuticals. But needless to say, we got into that and he was intrigued. And then once I said, oh, I host moon circles, he was like, oh, well, I'm a Christian. And I thought to myself, that's interesting. And I was like, well, it has nothing really to do with religion. We just talk about like what the moon is doing and, different things that are available to us and different things that if there's certain things that are coming up in your life or certain things you're ready to release or something that maybe you can open yourself up to receive from God or Jesus or whoever it is that you believe in. But nothing is tied to religion. And he definitely was not on board with it. And it kind of was a realization to me that there has kind of been a drive in between. But here recently, I've seen so many, I don't even know if they're people on Instagram or just different ways where it's like kind of what you were saying, like all of these ancient like religions and everything, even if you think about like the story of Jesus, like the 3 wise men followed the North Star. It wasn't just some like thing. I mean, like Batsheva said, the oceans and the tides are controlled by the moon. We're 70 to 80% of water. Why would we not be affected? It's like crazy to think whenever these different sources and different groups try to separate us and make us seem so individual, so not connected. For me, it's just like we are all connected. We're all connected in so many ways. And we're not just connected to each other. We're connected through nature, like through all of creation. And to me, that's like what the woo is like recognizing and acknowledging and playing with it. Like, this is something that's fun. It's magical. It's mystical. It's believing in make-believe, like what we did whenever we were all children.
It's so true. And like you said, it's like it is mystical, magical, and make-believe, and also not make-believe at all. Like it's actually the transits in the sky. And I was thinking it's so funny that someone would use any religion as a buffer against, goddess forbid, having an experience in tandem, in connection with a moon cycle, because the moon exists. I mean, there's a whole harvest system that is built around moons. Farmers know that, you know what
The
I mean?
Farmer's Almanac.
Exactly. And it's so funny that, like you said, we've just our human culture, as wonderfully evolved as we are, we have also unfortunately evolved away from so much of that Mother Earth and our cosmic natural environment. And it's fine if it doesn't resonate with you. Like Chelsea said, is the woo for you? If it's not, you do you. But I will say, as a child growing up, very judgmental, and it wasn't because of my religion. In a sense, my religion was intellectualism. It's almost like a religion because people can get very snobby about it, very judgmental of anyone else who doesn't see the world. And in fact, they can be, the people I grew up around can be, myself, I was one of those people, very judgmental against religious people because I thought, how can they be so stupid to believe in God? Like, what in the world? Like, I really thought I knew better. And I remember Nancy Reagan in the White House, and there was this kind of rumors going around and talk that she would consult an astrologer and help her husband, Ronald Reagan, govern. And we were all just in shock, and it's terrible. And now I think, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And I'm not politically supporting that administration. I just think the astrology part of it, why not? I mean, I worked actually for this one guy named Paul Fisher, he's like an old school model agent. Like back in the heyday, he represented all the top models, literally like Stephanie Seymour, Naomi Campbell. I worked for him for a year, and he did a reality show in that year on CBS. And his show, he had to go from little town to little town scouting models and, to make them a star. And what did he do before he would meet each little tiny agency in each of those little towns that were representing those those little unknowns? He would pay this friend of ours who was a Kabbalistic astrologer and get the chart done from that agent who owned the agency before he would go and meet them, because he was Kabbalah student all the way, and he really knew that there's just a bigger picture to this world, including astrology, including many, many other influences, forces, and energies. And then he would have so much insight into that agent. Then he would go and it was just like a key that unlocked so much information about them. And that reminds me too, for parents, it can be extremely helpful to do the charts of our children because, again, all of a sudden we're like, oh, that's who they are. Like, I don't need to try and change them, or it's completely useless for me to hope X, Y, and Z for a child who's up at A, B, and C. And again, to use it, as Chelsea said in the beginning, as a tool of comfort and information, not a psychic prediction.
Right. I think, and we kind of keep referring to the chart. And so for those of you that maybe aren't familiar with this, the chart that we're referring to is your birth chart. And you can get that online. You can go to like astrology.com, or there's many sites that offer it. And you need to know your birth date, your birthplace, and your birth time. And you put that in, and it basically tells you where all of the planets and everything were on the exact time that you were born. And then that ties into your birth chart. And not even just the birth chart, but then there's so many other things. There's the numerology, there is the human design, there's the gene keys. Like Batsheva said, there's the Feng Shui. So the Chinese astrology, there's all these different things and modalities and tools. And for me, what it's been is kind of as Batsheva said with her journey, she was born into this certain family, this certain upbringing and community that kind of shaped the way that she believed. And then, like, as she started to venture out or even dive into herself deeper through hearing loss and being able to hear her own voice, she started to discover more about herself. And that's what it's been for me as well. It's like getting to know myself on a deeper level and reading things. And sometimes I read them and they don't apply to me, and then I just let it go. I love the concept of take what works for you and leave the rest. And I like to do that with any class I go to, any experience, any sort of thing. It's like not everything there is going to be for you, but can you listen for the messages that are meant for you and take those away with you and implement them, or consult with them or come back to them whenever the time is right. And so for me, I can remember, my one friend, I just went through a really like a tough breakup that was just like heartbreaking and not in like the nasty, ugly way. It was just like, ugh. And also, I'd had some amazing experiences and then just been like, what the fuck is my life? Like, I don't even know. And my friend had just randomly sent me this thing. She'd actually sent it to me a little while ago, my friend Brittany, and it was called The Pattern. And I don't know why it came back to my mind, but it's like, oh, I'll just put that in. I'll try it out. And so I put in all the information and it started showing, it was called My Pattern. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is my life. Like, and I just started crying because it was like finally something that spoke to and gave me some like acknowledgement and some reassurance that like, yeah, everything you're experiencing is what you're meant to experience. Like, this is kind of like what your life is. And it's okay. It's perfect. And so it was really comforting and reassuring for me, and then allowed me to see other parts of myself.
I think that is a good reminder because it's so true when I have been in my life at times almost blindly absorbing and receiving what was being given to me. Unfortunately, it's becomes someone else's view of life, and it's not connected deeply with my own intuition, inner knowing, and instincts. And actually, it's so funny because I think, like Chelsea said in the beginning, we have recorded this particular episode. This is our fourth time because it just kept glitching on different levels. And so it's hard to remember what we said in this one and what we didn't. But it's funny because I think I mentioned that recently I had like a really powerful astrology reading, actually just like less than a week ago. It was amazing personal reading. It's the first one I've had in a while. And I have to say, I think I liked it more than any that I've ever had. First of all, because he didn't make one prediction, which, like I said, that just doesn't work for me. And I'm really a passionate proponent that the guru is you. We are our own guru. Like Chelsea said, take what resonates with you, find the lessons that are meant for you, leave the rest, and don't look back. No guilt, no shame, no anger, that's all you were meant to absorb from that and be happy about it. But Chelsea also mentioned about my hearing loss, and I think that may have been from a different episode. So I wanted just to share.
So.
Yeah, but I'm glad you brought it up. I'm totally glad because this reading that I just had, he is an evolutionary astrologer. Eric Myers is his name. And he has been doing it for decades. And he brought me through originally my birth chart, but then I wanted to focus more on my progressive chart and the transits, meaning how everything keeps moving. All the planets keep moving. So how does my personal chart interact with the current transits and like kind of what are the energetic supports I have? What could be some challenges? So he was looking at the big picture and he basically said, from reading your chart, I can tell you that one of your major life lessons, the biggest one that I can see in the chart, is that from childhood, and he believes in past life, he said from past lives, you accepted what other people told you and you followed the rules and you took on all the responsibilities and you did the thing and you showed up for everyone else around you. And your lesson in this lifetime is to put yourself first, to know yourself and put yourself first, no matter what. Of course, as a parent, that's difficult. When you're working and collaborating with others, it's not necessarily difficult. It's difficult for me because that's my life lesson. So, but of course, we get the challenges we're meant to have in order to strengthen these muscles of life lessons throughout our entire life. And so I actually have chronicled a lot of my journey through the blogs on my website, theconfidencecoach.org, I think. I don't know. But one of the blogs I wrote had to do with my hearing aids. So I have a major hearing loss and I wear hearing aids and I had a surgery. It wasn't successful to put an implant. And I already know spiritually why everything happened. Like there's a physical reason and then there's a spiritual reason. And I knew when it happened, I go, oh my God, I was so overwhelmed. It was almost 10 years ago when it happened. So overwhelmed with the just the loudness and the input from the spiritual community I was in, where everyone knew exactly what you needed to do, follow these rules, blah, blah, blah. From my wonderful ex-husband, who's, goddess bless him, amazing, but in the marriage is very loud and very opinionated. And in the business we shared together, it had his name on the door, the coffee shop, and he was the roaster, and it was his vision, and it was what he said goes. And it was like his way or the highway. And then I have 4 children, all of which have very strong personalities. And I had probably unwittingly taught them that I'll just lay over and do whatever they want. And so to get out from under that felt impossible. So what happened? My hearing started to go out, and I could not physically hear everyone else. So what happens next? You start to hear your inner voice. And oh my goodness, it was like the beginning of the new chapter, and more than a chapter, like, when you have book 1, and this was like book 2 of my life, not just getting the hearing aids, but recognizing that and making a commitment to myself that I would be on a path of listening to myself, hearing myself, figuring out how to do so. And because I had started that path within my marriage, as I've said in previous episodes, when my ex-husband told me he wanted to end the marriage, I was set up to be okay, although it was devastating. But there was like a baseline that I had already begun that work, thank goddess, to help me have a baseline and continue. I mean, even today, every day I find it challenging, with kids especially, not to put them first. And so it's a beautiful life's journey that I'm on, but I'm doing pretty good because I've got, the band, and I've got all my creative projects, and he definitely saw all of that in the charts. I'm Leo. I've got Venus and Leo, for those of you who know. I mean, it's really exciting to see that, wow, my life reflects what kind of the stars have in store for me. This is very reaffirming again. And yeah, so that's the path I'm on.
I love that. And I love that I did not know I knew that you had hearing aids, but I guess I had never looked at it from that perspective. And it really reminds me, there's another podcaster and amazing woman. Her name she goes by Blue of Earth, and her podcast is Deja Blue. And she also had severe hearing loss, and it kind of started her journey, or like led her, thanks to that, led her down another path. And, to see that and say, like, this happened for me, and to see it in that light, especially like you now, you're like, oh, like, obviously, like, this was for my highest good. Whereas other people, or sometimes, even ourselves, we're like, why is this happening to me? But just remembering, like, everything is happening for us, for our soul's evolution, for our own personal growth, for our highest good. And sometimes it's hard to see that in the challenging moments and the trying times, but I think this is a perfect example of it. And being able to look back. That's another thing about the astrology or the different readings, and being able to come back to it and say, oh, it's so funny. It said this, and then this is actually what happened. And look at, it was spot on. I actually
Totally.
I was gifted a planner. It's called Mini Moons, and it has different practices like journaling and card drawing and talking about the astrology. And you write it in the planner. And then it's this last one, it was talking about the eclipses that we're about to encounter. And it said, revisit these cards after each eclipse and see what they're saying to you now. And I really loved the idea of that, because that hasn't, I draw cards along with the cycles, but usually a new set of cards, and not like looking back to the same set and seeing if there's a different message after each time. So I'm excited for that new practice for me.
That's so cool. Well, I have a suggestion, because I think we're wrapping up now, but why don't we do Is the Woo for You Part 2 next time? Because we barely got into tarot. Do you want to try?
Yeah, I love that idea.
Let's do it.
And maybe in the meantime, you comment below or let us know some different things that you're interested in. Maybe something that you want to know if we know more about it, and you would like us to engage in that, or what your favorite woo practice is. And with that, I believe it's my turn. We'll finish as we like to with our daily dubs for the episode. So, win number one is going to be that we persevered. We persevered to this recording despite all of the obstacles that came up for us. We resorted to the Zoom instead of the platform that we normally use to script, and we did it. So that's win number one. And wow for me is that I'm really grateful for this episode. The full moon is tomorrow, depending on what time zone you're in. It's like it's after midnight if you're in California. But it'll be my first moon circle back, as I took January and February off. And I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to host an event like this. I'm grateful for the people that come. I'm grateful for the community. And yeah, just to be able to share something that I'm passionate about. So that is my wow.
I so wish that I could be there in Missouri doing your moon circle with you. So that's totally wonderful. And I guess by the time this episode is published, that particular one will be in the books, but there'll be others. You can look at soulscription.life if you want to stay tuned to Chelsea's whereabouts. And it's now my turn to verbalize my wish. So I think I'm going to wish for one of my daughters, I won't say which one, is experiencing a ricochet with schoolwork. She was really involved in extracurriculars and wasn't able to keep up with schoolwork and now finds herself really underwater. And my heart goes out to her. So I'm wishing for all the internal support, the external support from myself in the right way, from her school, from the heavens and her guardian angels, just everyone to lift up her wings and help this be a smooth landing for her, that she's just not going to feel as if she's drowning, which she did express to me, but instead she'll be able to raft by raft by raft, get herself back onto shore with ease and with a lot of comfort along the way.
That wraps it up for today. Thank you for being here with us. We love you so much, and we wish that your day is brighter.
And we'll see you soon. Make sure to like, subscribe, and come again.